Another way in which we can humanise is obviously by playing the MIDI in. And this can, well, it depends on technical skill. I'm not a very good pianist, so I'd struggle with this piece of music. However, I'm going to demonstrate some strategies and ways of getting around sort of technical limitations. So, I'm going to focus on 5 now, because obviously I've done a bit of humanisation here, so I may as well do this on the next bit. I also focus more on later lessons on humanising via editing the MIDI manually, but I figured I'd do this lesson now just so it's there and you know how to do it. Obviously, the reason I do that is because I don't expect everyone to own a MIDI keyboard or anything like that. I want the course to be as accessible as possible. But I think if you have a keyboard, then obviously it's worth me showing that to you. And there is ways of playing the material in on your computer keyboard, although I'm not going to do that. I don't think it reads velocities necessarily on there very well, and we obviously want, the whole point of putting this in is so that the velocities and things like that are sort of taken care for us. Although this is a more efficient way of doing timings and things like that. So one way in which we can humanise this piece, which is beyond my skills as a pianist, is by simply playing the outline of the rhythm in each hand, and then redistributing the notes to the correct pitches after. Obviously, we don't want to destroy our MIDI here, because we might want to fall back on that if we do things wrong and things like that. So we're just simply going to mute this track and then press Command D. And then obviously unmute the track that's come up. Command D simply copies this track here without the MIDI information here, the MIDI regions, but keeps the same sort of panning and things like that. And as I say, I'm going to focus on we'll do the 4 bars and see how we get on. And as I say, I'm going to play it in. So it could be helpful to turn the metronome back on, because that'll help with timings. Because I do want to sort of get it into the grid as much as possible, because we are going to tighten up what will be the worst piano performance in history. So when I press record, which I can either do by pressing this button here or pressing R, I'm going to press R. It should give me a 4-beat counting, which is controlled by this button here. And what happens is it'll go back to the start of 4 and count me in over that bar for 4 beats, and I'll stop playing at 5, which will give me enough time to hopefully get to my keyboard and play in the notes effectively. Obviously it's pianissimo here, so I've got to remember that and play it as well as I can. Although we could tweak the velocities easier than in the timing. So I'm going to press record. I'll just do the 2 bars actually for now, because I did play it sort of wrong anyway. I played an E flat major chord, but they can be dragged down there. I want to keep the timings roughly. I might drag it back towards this note there. Likewise for this one. Completely forgot the velocities. However, we can tweak that. Seems like So if we grab each one, drag them. I actually put them on the wrong note. Obviously we want to change some of the rhythmic things and maybe add some notes in. So obviously feel free in future lessons as well to, if you have got a keyboard, to humanise via recording, you applying this technique. As I say, I will edit stuff in. So what we need to do is now start turning this into, well, what we want to do actually is quantize it. And what we do is select, actually we don't need to select the whole thing. In region, here, because we've selected this region, we can then go to time quantize, and we want to press 16th notes. And we just need to keep an eye on this to check everything has gone tightly to the grid. However, we don't want to do it 100%, otherwise we're back to square one. And what we do is just simply tweak this. If I go back to 0, you can see it's pulling and moving the notes backwards and forwards. We'll probably try maybe 60. And just have a listen to it as it is now. Obviously it's not the right music yet, we need to tweak the notes. Okay, so that's not too bad. I think that'll do actually. Now obviously we need to make sure we've got the right notes in. But one thing we can do before that is actually, and we'll do this the reverse way round so that we get a bit of variety in the rhythms. If we pull this to here, now 6 and 7 are the same rhythmically. Pull that to 5, but our ears should not pick up on the pattern hopefully. So what we need to do now is tweak the notes in here. So focusing on this top line, obviously the E flats, E flat, then D. However, it's not got this semi-quaver, because we're here. Pull that out. Obviously it helps if you're able to read music for this bit of the lesson. However, you can get around it, as I've demonstrated, by just simply editing the MIDI and things like that. So that's the G, down to a D actually, and that wants to be a B natural. I'll just do the first 2 bars for now, otherwise this lesson could go on a bit. And then it's middle line, so we've got G, A flat again, that goes down to F sharp, is that? Yep. Don't need to worry about the detachment of the notes at the minute, because he does use the sustain pedal, which we're going to add in a little while. So really, I mean, this is quite a bit time consuming as well. It depends on the level at which you can play piano. If by all means, if you are able to play even one hand at a time effectively, you can overlay recordings in GarageBand. So that's an option as well. Or if you are good enough to play it straight in, then obviously use that skill to do that. My first instrument is trumpet, and that hasn't prepared me for playing Chopin's Prelude Opus 28 in C minor, so I have to settle for working around that in MIDI. However, if you can play piano, I would obviously suggest as well, if you are a talented pianist, doing it the other way as well, humanising manually, just so you get the principles of it into your mind, into your head, into your fingers, and things like that. So let's hear how that sounds, and then I might do this section but speed it up so that we've got that 4 bars there and I can drop it in. The good thing about, obviously we are going to tie this up with sustain, so it does sound a bit clunky at the minute. Hopefully once we have some sustain we can hear it more effectively as how it should be. I could probably extend some of these notes. I might do that now, so they're slightly more full. It's a little less detached. The good thing about playing it in is that it affects the end durations as well, so you get that variety, which is hard obviously to do manually. So that's something else, an advantage of this method. But as I say, it's not the only way. And be sure to try out all different ways, because I have given the MIDI files. So I'm going to quickly do this bit. I'll probably speed this bit of the video up, and then just to jump in, it's probably actually easier to do it as chords. Grab them and pull them about, and then do each one and then move along. Whatever's easiest, whether you do want to do individual lines as I did in that previous one, or do it as chords. Having just done it now, it feels easier to actually do it in chords, so that's something to bear in mind as well. Okay, so I did do just a quick test to check that's alright. Didn't hear any mistakes, because I did hear mistakes, I changed them. Hopefully I've spotted them all. That's something to bear in mind as well if you're playing it in, obviously, and doing it this way you have to be careful to make sure you maintain accuracy. So let's just hear that now, and we'll apply some sustain. Well, apply to sustain to the whole piece, because it's reasonably easy to do. Or you could also play in the sustains as well if you're doing it this way. So one thing we can do, well, we'll just have a listen first. Check it's okay. So let's just listen to that again. That note there, just going forward. Yeah, it's just something to bear in mind. Obviously, we don't want them too far apart on the notes within the hands, because you end up with a machine gun effect. There as well. Nice. I mean, the sustain should help with some of that machine gun effect in as well, because it'll blur the lines of where the new notes start and things like that. It'll soften the attack of them. So one thing we can do now is go into here, go onto this line. We can unmute it. Right click on the region. I can play split of the playhead, or Command T, and go to the end of 8, Command T, get rid of it by pressing delete, and then simply drag that one up there. And then we can play it from the beginning and see how it sounds. We'll not play the entire piece, probably play it to about there. Just test it. There are still some stammery notes in there, which we'll keep an eye out for, and I'll try and change as we're going through the sustains and things like that. That's one thing to be aware of. Don't be afraid to change things just because you've put something in. It doesn't mean it can't be changed. So that is playing in MIDI to humanise performance.